Hello everyone, it's Danny. So today we're going to be answering a question sent by Heather, and she's asking if I think that a new growth or a new leaf means that the sick orchid is getting proper care now and it's getting healthy again. So yeah, I thought I can make a discussion about this actually and tell you my opinion, and also try to give you some tips that I've discovered along the way to maximize your chances of actually saving an orchid. Now, to Heather's question, I believe that a new growth is a very good news because the orchid tells you that it has some energy to devote to new growth. It is the first step actually into its recovery. But however, I don't believe it means the orchid is out of the woods, and I don't think it means that you're actually providing everything she wants. I think it just means that she desperately wants to live and wants to reproduce. Now, I think the real test will come when the new growth will start to produce the roots, and yeah, it's really tricky. That moment in time, you have to make it right. So you have great chances to actually save the orchid. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about how to maximize your chances as far as I've seen with my experiments and my orchids. And yeah, you know, I had great success with some and great failure with others. So let's talk about that. I would like to start with saying that sick orchids are just like sick people. They're more vulnerable and more delicate than a healthy orchid. And if you do a mistake, the slightest mistake, it can actually affect it a lot more than a healthy orchid. So I do prefer to think of them as being properly sick and properly fragile. Now, with that in mind, let's start with the beginning, because that's really important. Let's start with the moment that you want to repot the orchid, the moment you notice it's sick and you would like to repot it. So I will refer here mainly to orchids that suffer from loss of roots or root rot. I'm not going to refer to crown rot. That's a totally different story. So, okay, the first thing you want to do is repot it. You want to get it out of the medium, especially if you just purchased it and you have no idea what's in the medium. Of course, if you see the orchid is sick, there must be a problem with it, and most of the times it's a root problem. So you need to repot it and get it out of that medium. There are a few reasons why you want to get rid of the old medium. One would be that you don't know how old it is and how broken down and how toxic it has become. Second would be you have no idea what actually affects the roots. It could be root rot, but it could also have a deeper problem to it, like a pest infestation. You might get some mealybugs or some snails or any sort of creature inside there that is eating up the roots. So causes can be multiple, so you do want to get her out of that medium. And of course, third of all, it could be that the medium is not appropriate for the orchid. Like you may have noticed, there are a lot of orchids in sphagnum moss because the nursery tries to be economical about growing orchids, and sometimes sphagnum moss can get quite pressed down and can suffocate the roots. Also, it can really not work in your environment because your home is very, very different from the one in the nursery. So these are the main three reasons why you want to repot it and get your orchid out of the medium and place it in appropriate fresh medium of your choice. Now, the next important thing to keep in mind is that you do have to clean the orchid very well and disinfect the remaining roots. You don't want to repot an orchid with dead roots because those will just be a perfect environment for rots and fungi and all sorts of stuff you don't want. Also, they keep the medium too moist because they act as a sponge. Even after they die, this membrane that covers them, this white thing, still absorbs water even though the orchid doesn't use it. So, cut off all the dead roots and then disinfect the remaining roots or the entire area because you can never be too sure. I usually prefer to disinfect with hydrogen peroxide 3%, and there's a very good reason why I want to wash and disinfect the roots despite what other people might say on the internet. Because I really don't want to transfer any pests like snails and mealybugs or all sorts of stuff. I really don't want to transfer them to the new medium. As I told you, the crucial point is when this new growth starts to produce roots. If there's something in the soil that will eat the fresh new roots, then your chances of saving this orchid drop dramatically. This is an orchid that I have in limbo. I didn't properly clean it, and all the new roots that this shoot produced are eaten up and are dead, and now she's desperately trying to put out more roots, but I don't know how much energy she has. So my honest opinion is that you do have to wash the roots and try to disinfect them as best as you can. Now, I think a warmer environment is better for sick orchids for two main reasons. Well, first of all, in warmer temperatures, you kind of limit the appearance of rot and stuff like that. And also, you speed up the metabolism of the plant because you do want to get those roots faster rather than later. A new growth staying too much on the mother bulb in sick orchids will mean that it will deplete more and more energy, while if it produces roots very fast, it will start to feed on its own, it will start to sustain itself, so you do want to speed up the process kinda. So keeping an orchid, or most commonly available orchids, in a temperature range of 20 to 24, 25 degrees Celsius, I think does good, and I think it will help you when you are actually trying to save your orchid. With Phalaenopsis orchids, it's really important how you actually pot it. Don't try to place it too deep into the medium. If the orchid doesn't have roots, just try to stake it on a stake here and actually keep it slightly above the soil. Don't go with the stem too deep, because it will be prone to stem rot, and this is a sort of rot that happens between the leaves. It's pretty similar to crown rot, but it does happen here if there's any water trapped here. So don't place it in the medium too deep. Try to make it slightly above the medium, and if it doesn't have roots, if you cannot really pot it properly, just stake it to a stake, whatever it's called, until it roots out and until it can hold herself in the pot. Now, the next crucial thing is how to actually water a sick orchid. As I told you, sick orchids are really susceptible to all sorts of diseases and rots created by standing water, and this new growths are actually super sensitive, and they can get crown rot in a matter of days if there's any water trapped. So whatever you do, don't get any water into the crown of the new growth. Don't let water touch it too much. You can let the water touch the base of the new growth, but never the top. Now, I guess the best method is to actually dive the whole pot into something and let it soak a bit. But because the orchid doesn't have so many roots, you really don't want to water the pot every time the surface of the medium gets dry, because the surface will be dry, but the middle and the lower part of the pot will stay too wet, and you don't want that either. So what I do is actually place the sprayer right on the surface of the medium, very close to the medium, and start spraying here, as close to the medium as I can, being very careful not to get any droplets of water into this new growth, because that will really cause some problems. Now, if you do get some water in this new growth or on the leaves, there's a thing you can do. You can place this orchid in front of a fan, not really too close to it. You don't want to make a hurricane, but yeah, in the flow of a fan, and keep it there for a few hours, because the fan will actually dry out any droplets of water from this new growth, and you can prevent a lot of stuff. I did have quite a few orchids that developed crown rot even in summertime, just because I got some water in between the leaves of the new growth. So you really don't want to do that. Also, I think it's really important to keep the surface of the media moist, so that when new roots start to emerge, you can start pick up the moisture. I usually water the whole pot once a week, or whenever I see that the middle and bottom part of the pot are dry, I water the whole pot. But other than that, I just spray the surface of the soil, of the medium here, and it has worked great for me, provided that I don't get any water into the new growth. Also, it will help to have some humidity around the plant, but I really wouldn't go dramatic. I wouldn't go to a 90% humidity, because that can create droplets on the new growth. And again, as I told you, you really don't want to get any water into the new growth. But maybe 60 or possibly 70% humidity, that would be absolutely great for this orchid. If you can't reach that high, 50% would be ideal as well. What you don't want to have is a 20% humidity in a very dry environment, because the orchid is already dehydrated. Now, to be fairly honest, I don't really feel comfortable with a sphagnum bag, or bagging the orchid, putting a bag on top of it And I'll tell you why I don't feel comfortable, because there's no ventilation with around the orchid if you put a bag on top of it. And also, if you have any condensation or humidity just gets slightly too high, it can drop, or it can create some droplets, very, very small and fine droplets, to the new growth that you will not be able to see actually, but they will cause some trouble. So if you have tried, and if you wanna experiment the sphagnum bag or bagging the orchids, then be my guest, but keep in mind that lack of ventilation is also not so good. So maybe you can place some holes in the bag. I'm not sure. Try to ventilate it as well. Don't put the bag and just leave it there. You can also get all sorts of molds on the top of the medium. Anyway, now many people have tried this method and it worked, but many have failed with it, and I think it's pretty risky. Imagine that all the condensation can actually get in the new growth, and that's the thing that you don't want. So personally, I've never tried it. I don't think I need it, and I don't think I'll ever try it. I'm not sure. Maybe I'll try it. But anyway, I prefer to have good ventilation. There are some other things you can do to increase humidity. First off, never use the sprayer. Never spray the leaves of a sick orchid. Second, you can also use a humidity tray. It's not gonna do too much, but it might help, especially if it's warm. It can start to evaporate, and it can increase humidity just that slight amount that the orchid actually needs. Also, you can use a humidifier. Don't use it straight next to it, straight at the plant. Use it near the plant somewhere, just to increase humidity, but don't go overboard with it. Now, I personally don't like to fertilize sick orchids, not until I see that the new root system is taking hold of the pot and is developing and starting to grow rapidly. At that point, I do start to fertilize slightly just to give it some more strength, and I also use a fertilizer with higher nitrogen. But until that point, I only use plain water, no fertilizer. Now, there are some other things that people use to enhance actually, or to induce an orchid into producing roots, and that is root hormone, or vitamin B1, or seaweed, or all sorts of stuff designed to actually help the orchid root. Personally, I've never tried anything like that. I don't know if it would benefit me. I do intend to try out something maybe in the future. There are mixed feelings about all these enhancers on the internet, so I'm not really sure what to do yet. I don't have an opinion on the subject yet, an informed opinion. But if you want to try it out, maybe some root hormone will help. Though if the orchid doesn't have roots, I'm not really sure how that will work. But anyway, you can try it out. Personally, I don't know what to tell you about these. I did well without them in many cases, and the only cases with which I failed were the cases where I did let a lot of pests get into the new medium and actually chop off and eat all the new roots. So all the orchids that are in a sort of a limbo right now are due to that fact. That is the major thing that I did wrong, and I encourage you not to do it wrong. And yeah. And also, people have preferred mediums in which they like to save orchids. I think these mediums are very, very tightly connected to your environment. Personally, for me, bark and coconut husk work the best, but it might just be my environment. Maybe in your environment, which could be warmer or could be drier, maybe sphagnum moss, very airy sphagnum moss could do better. I don't know. Or maybe a mixture with the bark and sphagnum moss, or even hydroton clay pellets, which is a sort of a controversial subject. So this will actually be related to your intuition and to your observation. Try to think of your environment. How is it? Is it too warm? Is it too dry? Is it summer? Is it winter? And all these factors. Try to think how your environment is in order to get a good medium for your orchid. I tend to think that bark medium is a sort of a universal thing. Even if it dries up too fast, you can always water it. It's also airy. So yeah, if you don't know what to choose, the safest bet would be the bark medium, I would say. And if you notice, if you notice that it starts to dry out too fast, you can always water it a little bit more. Well, okay, that's about it on how to care for sick orchids. They will really need your constant attention because they're very fragile. But I hope these suggestions actually help you, and yeah, I hope you get to save your orchids and to get them healthy again very, very fast. These are just some tips that I've discovered that actually help you and maximize your chances to get a healthy orchid. So, okay, thank you guys for watching, and if you have any other questions, you can pop them in a comment below, and I'll try to make a video for you guys or answer you with a comment. So if you like what you see, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. So I'll see you next time. Bye bye!